Welcome to the Coaching Game. I'm Laurie Lawson, and tonight my guest is Terry Yoffe of Coaches Creating Change.
Wow, you caught me by surprise. I didn't. I
didn't know.
Blowing my nose when you. Oh gosh.
Well,
when you started.
I had no idea.
Right in there.
I know. I saw the clock go. Whoa.
Wow,
okay, we're on.
We are on.
And now that we're on, we have no idea what we're going to talk about. No, that's not true.
We do not. We always have some thought in the back of our
That's
minds.
it. I have to tell you, Terry just did Coach Chat Radio, and it was like we had planned, we're going to talk about this, and we got off on communication,
Right.
and the show was fantastic.
Yeah. So there you go.
So we just, being natural is a good thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Right. Two
All right.
people that know each other.
Yeah, you can usually come up with something.
Right.
But I think what we decided to do this time is talk about, we're going to say tribalism, community, and how cool that is, and yet how sometimes it can limit your thinking, because you're in this group, and or as Washington likes to go, you're in the bubble, or you're out of the bubble, or something. So it's so good to get a variety of opinions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you think of community, people, I think, naturally go to a personal community. You know, if you are part of a religious organization, whether it's a Judaism or Catholicism, or family is even community.
Absolutely.
you know. And then we get to the business side, which more and more people are looking at community or team, right, as part of this coming together.
Yeah,
in a way.
Yeah, and it can be. There's different kinds of community. Because I think what kind of made me start thinking about this, and Terry and I have been talking about biases and all that stuff, was my car, which I have I drive it. That's it. But my car needed a new battery, and I have a friend who says, in America, white women can get away with anything. And I thought about it, and I went, he's right. We either play on the gender or whatever, but it's. And I said, this is the one example where I'm not going to get an advantage because I'm a single white female, and I'm going to go in and they're going to go, I see lots of work that could be done. So I said, what? And it works. It cuts both ways, actually. And that's what got me thinking about it. And it's like, well, where else do we take for granted our community, and where else does our community limit us, And I said, wow, that's a pretty fascinating thought, because there's no good and bad. There's just
it's perspectives.
Exactly, yeah.
It's
and how can you broaden them? Because the radio show, that's our whole concept, is like if you change your perspective, you change your life.
Right.
And so that's kind of what we're just going to kick it around and see what we come up with. So do you have an example of where you could be biased or at an advantage?
I think certainly in your upbringing. I mean, when I was brought up in a very narrow environment.
Ah, really?
I grew up in an area in Queens, and my public school, not so much my junior high school, but my high school was all a little lower to middle class. And, when I went to college, there was a much greater variety of individuals.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to see how other people, kind of come together. There wasn't as much diversity.
That's interesting, because in college you do have to create your own community.
Right, exactly.
Because it's not your high school buddies.
Right,
It may be a few of them.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point, because college is community creating. Yeah.
Exactly. And what about when you go into the business world?
Oh.
Again, there's a lot of different types of individuals.
Yeah.
And I think today, certainly in the business world, community and teams and working with different cultures certainly is about how can the many cultures work together in a way that creates a vision of what the company is putting forth, right? So people don't get in each other's way.
Yeah, yeah. And
today.
Some companies want to keep the traditional standard, we want to just stay the way we were, but I think we could use some of the companies that are going out of business. It's like you got to meet the needs of today, and today it's not just your culture. You've got to include all the cultures. You've got to include the technology. So
it's also years ago you never saw many women in the workforce.
Exactly.
I mean, my mother worked. But in where I grew up, she was one of nobodies that one of one that actually went to work for a living.
Yeah.
Whereas all the other wives were housewives. She went to work, and it was very interesting to see and to be in that environment. Today it's a whole different ballgame. There are women that are CEOs, women running companies, whereas years ago that just didn't happen.
No, it's interesting. There's improvement with time. Also, it's like where you grew up. I grew up in a small town on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and it was a community. My gosh, was it a community? People knew what you were doing before you knew what you were doing, and your parents, you got away with nothing because someone would tell on you.
Right.
But it was like, so my bias would be, I want anonymity. I want to go somewhere where I can do whatever I want. So here I am in New York City, where you can do anything and nobody's even going to notice. But that's a bias too. But I noticed that when I want to relax and I want to go back, I go back to the Eastern Shore of Maryland. So there are roots going on there, but it doesn't mean that you can't branch out and expand. And that's what I love with your example of college. It's like, wherever you go, you're going to bring yourself, of course. But it's like college gives you a great opportunity. And you know what? You can take that opportunity in high school too, of course. But college gives you a great opportunity to get to know people who weren't in my small town. I mean, my small town, it was black, white. And that was about it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think about where I grew up, and it was predominantly Caucasian. And if you go there now, it's all Pakistan, Indian, very different cultures that have moved into neighborhoods, whether it's Astoria or, which was Greek and Italian.
Right. Oh, that's right. And the cultures moved too.
Have now kind of grown in the different areas.
Yeah.
So, it's very different to see community and what does it mean in today's universe.
And how fluid is it also? I mean, it's not like a sorority or a fraternity. It's you're not a lifelong member and you go within the guidelines. How fluid is it? Who can join? Who can leave? And all of that. What do you think the benefits of community are?
Certainly, and here's an interesting. A true happening. I live in a building that is truly a community, believe it or not. People know each other, they gravitate towards each other.
Wow, in New York City, that's amazing.
It is. And a very dear friend of mine's daughter died tragically. It was a couple of years ago. And she belongs to a synagogue. And that was there for her.
Wow.
For this whole ordeal. It was her community was there for her in a time of need.
That's nice to hear.
That's a community of people that come together that want to be there to see her through a very hard time.
Now that's interesting because was the community intact, or did it form to gather around her?
In the Jewish religion, when somebody dies, they sit shiva. And I think our building had never seen so many people come. They must have had 2,000 people.
Oh my gosh.
Or close to it, that came all day to sit and be with my friend and her husband.
Wow.
They just piled in. And even afterwards, she has friends that were there for her to help her through her 2 or 3-year journey of getting through this tragedy.
Wow.
So that's one form of community is, again, like I said, if you're part of a church, right?
Yeah, religion is a big community.
A community.
And yet people use it to fight with each other. It's like, come
Yes,
on,
they
we're
do.
all a part.
They
Terry
do.
has a great African quote, and also, and it just really tells you the benefits of community. Yeah.
Right. So it's an African quote, and it goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
And, you know, ICF, the New York chapter,
I was thinking, as a perfect community,
is a community. And one of the former presidents had used that quote.
Oh,
and,
really? Yeah.
Janet Harvey.
Oh, okay.
And I remember it. Laurie was president, and I was president of our New York chapter, and we built a community of people that came together, like-minded people, wanting to learn, wanting to grow, wanting to seek.
You know what? That's interesting that you brought that up, because on the radio show, you got to check out Terry's website. It's on there. You can check out mine. It's on there also. Bernie Siegel, who was also president of ICF chapter, and the three of us kind of hang together, mentioned that when we all started, we said, "Oh, we want to create a community," because there really wasn't one. There was a lot of
factions,
cliquishness, and people who felt that and people would come and not feel welcome. And we all said, you know what, we want to change this atmosphere, and we want to really work on getting people to feel like this is a community. So that, and I think ICF Global, which is all around the world, is working very hard too to create that community too.
They are, and they are working hard to create that. You know, each chapter, I mean, New York City is certainly one of the larger chapters.
Yes.
But I, as being a past president, one of the things I do is I mentor and guide some of the new presidents. And listening to them talk about their community in their chapter is very interesting. But certainly ICF Global, and I was just thinking I'm going to send this little this TV show to them, so they know
cool.
that they are
that they're making a difference, definitely,
in community. So you can see how communities can rise up together. And certainly this model is being looked at and implemented in companies, because what could be greater than having an organization create, maybe it's called teams, or even, you know, a community is the organization. Some of these small companies that work together to create the vision that they have set out to create for themselves. And it's not just the hierarchy. It takes the whole village to do that.
As Hillary said, it takes a village, and it does. And I find fascinating, and I guess I'll use 9/11 as the perfect example of people coming together in community. I mean, suddenly we had an international community that was so empathetic to New York and all the loss that it had. We managed to mess that up a few months later, but it was amazing how people came together here. They were down there working on the rubble. They were collecting clothes. They were and I think a community doesn't have to be forever, but it's something. I love the fluidity of it. You can join it, you can leave it, you can come back to it. And what was the quote about the common cause?
So I found another one. A tribe. So a tribe is a group of people connected to one another, connected to a leader, and connected to an idea or a vision.
Right.
Or an idea. And then it went on to say, a group needs only two things: shared interest and a way to communicate.
Isn't that amazing?
Oh, yeah. Shared interest and a way to communicate.
And I think I think that's what coaching does a lot of. It shows you how to communicate. It gives you different perspectives of how communication can work. It broadens your horizons. And then it also, I think it's an encompassing community. I've never seen them go, nah, don't be a coach. It's like, sure, come on in and join us. Everybody has something to offer someone else, and that's the real benefit of creating a community of any kind.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And just for organizations where always there were silos. Right, of people who worked in their silo and didn't know what the next person was doing.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping and I believe that the vision and the way businesses are running is not about having silos.
Knocking down or creating unwalls,
right?
Whatever that is, creating unwalls. But yeah, at least making walls expandable and contractable and things like that. Yeah, that's a good point. The silos, because that was how everything operated. I remember when I was coming up in the career world, you had a management chart, and you stuck to that, and you wanted to move up that way and that way, and nobody really communicated.
Right.
It was like, this is my goal. And these people are above me, these people are below me, and I want to move on up.
That's still there. I mean, obviously, an org chart, but it's getting people together to brainstorm and come up with ideas, no matter who you are, to help develop and grow an institution, whatever it is, or a business. Small businesses can't afford to be siloed.
Right. And I think one thing that it does, the community or the group or the organization, is it teaches you the value of other people's points of views, because there are points of views that I'm never going to have. One would be of a mother. I'm not a mother.
Right.
So but that's a valuable point of view, because there are many mothers out there. And and I think organizations are starting to realize that, we thought we had the business plan down, but now the business plan is definitely movable and changeable and adaptable. And the only way you do that is through communication. We're back on communication again. It's like,
I know.
I guess you can't get away from it.
No,
right? Yeah.
But that's, I had a client that was Latino, and she had a upbringing that got in the way of her becoming as successful as she wanted to be.
Interesting.
Because of her environment and her culture and the restrictions that her culture placed on her.
Yes.
Again, with environments and cultures, and how she had to kind of pry herself free of that culture or some of the ways of its thinking. Right? She'll always, and she uses her voice and her Latino culture to help move her forward. And she's very much involved in the community and teaching young women how to break free, and they don't have to be stuck, in one specific mindset that a culture might offer up for people.
It's interesting because I have someone who's been on the show a couple of times, Penelope Shue, and she is in the process right now of speaking up for Asian women. It's like, okay, and breaking that mold there. I've had several Asian Indian clients who their culture too is like, okay, you know, the women has a role and the man has a role, and just breaking through all that. But also it's important, like when you remember that thing, The Ugly American? When we travel to other countries, we expect them to be exactly like us. And I think you have to know the differences and learn from and respect that. And yes, I think it's our duty to teach each other. It's like, that's the beauty. I mean, you and I can talk about Queens versus Crisfield, Maryland, you know, but we still have the same kind of culture going. But if we go to another country, it's like, why not absorb whatever they have to learn
and fit in a little bit, you know,
yeah,
and you don't have all the cameras around your neck, and people can point and see
so
immediately who you are as you do that. But I love the shared interest.
Yeah.
And a way to communicate. And one of the things that I tell my clients at work is, when we coach about their work, is it's about the company. It's what does the company, what are their values, what is their mission, what's their vision, and then everyone has to work towards that.
Right.
And it's not about, I want to do this or I want to do that. People don't realize they're only part of the voice of the company and the mission and the vision for that. Everyone has to work towards that purpose.
That's so funny because I spent many years as an HR person, and people would come and go, I need a raise because I just had a baby. And I'm going, that's a really valid reason. But what does that have to do with this company? Nothing. It's like, tell me you need a raise because you just increased sales by 20%, or that you innovated a new idea that for for benefits. You know, you've got to keep in mind that you are part of a community. Yes. You have individual needs, absolutely, and some of them can be fulfilled by the community. But when you're in a company, you're absolutely right. The goal of the company.
And people forget that.
They do.
Really go off base, and they think about themselves.
Yes.
Right. It's all about me. All about me. When that's not the truth. Yeah. And they forget that it's what are they doing to contribute to the value of their voice in the company, whoever makes that voice, and whoever creates the purpose. Or a lot of big companies are no longer around. Big companies that whoever thought they would have gone by the wayside.
Yeah, and I think in some cases the human element was forgotten. It's like, here's the goal of the business. It's a delicate dance. You have to respond to the needs of the community and the people you're serving, but you also have to keep in mind the mission. And I think that's the importance of the tribal or the community, the business community, because you all need to be on the same page and you all need to be working toward this. And that doesn't mean you can't make suggestions, you can't make improvements,
but
or
you need
even
to tweak or change what the mission is.
In fact, you should do that. You should bring your own. The only thing you can bring to the table is your own self. You can try to be like somebody else, but you can really only bring yourself. So so that's a valuable part of the community.
Also, I was just thinking, even coaching, if you define community in many different ways, the coach and the client are a little community. They're a team.
Absolutely,
And it's all about the coach. Again, you looking at the company, and it's about the client and what are their needs and what do they need to do to grow and to develop and to expand. So community could be 2 people, a little team.
Good point. Good point.
Or it could be a community of a congregation. Or a business.
Yeah, yeah. And you could be a member of many, many communities. But no, I like the idea of, I think a client and a coach is, that's a great team. And you're both working toward the same goal.
Right, exactly.
And that is to get the client wherever they want to go, or to help the client, remove an obstacle or whatever the thing is. So your team can be a marriage. A marriage is a team.
Absolutely.
A community.
Right.
And certainly if you throw in kids, it gets bigger and bigger.
Right,
but,
exactly.
So I think if people would start thinking in terms of, I'm a member of this team, or not team, I don't want to go, I'm a member of this community, but also I'm interested in this community and I want to know what they're doing over there and how can I incorporate and what can I contribute,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's, if you're going to look at different communities, you may have to amalgamate yourself
might
into that community, whatever it is. I mean, so when we looked at ICF being a community, as coaches, we're part of that community, right?
Right.
And we all, as coaches and members of ICF, we are always showing up, knowing we're part of the bigger community called ICF, and how we show up in the core competencies and everything else are, again, lifting up and how we're presenting a brand called ICF.
Absolutely. And just for clarification, when I say you can be a member of any team, you can. Will I ever be a tall black man? No, I won't. But will I be able to appreciate what that tall black man can bring to the community and what I can give to his community? Yeah. So and you won't. There are some things you can't. There are limitations, absolutely. But I think the beauty of coaching and the beauty of the New York City chapter and the global chapter is that it does bring so many different people together with so many great ideas.
Right, and leaving biases behind.
Right, and so willing to share.
Exactly.
People are definitely willing to share and say, oh, okay, let's jump on this. And because I'm sure you've been a part of group coaching where everybody jumps in and tries to help the one issue. So,
well, I think our time is almost up here. And I hope we've imparted some interesting philosophies and thoughts about community and what does it mean to you, and taking a look at your community and how you fit in.
And I think a good exercise might be make a list of all the communities that you're a part of now, and then how do they go together?
Exactly.
And who else do you need? What other communities do you need? So we'll leave you with that challenge and tell you that we'll be back next week.
Month.
Thank you. Not next week, next month. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.